Hey everybody, I know I haven't been uploading any videos of late. It's been about a month. I just wasn't in a mental state to create things. My creativity was blocked because there's a lot of things on my mind, a lot of suspended particulate matter that makes everything hazy and unclear. There are a lot of things not going my way, a lot of things held in abeyance, not quite seeing any resolution. I needed something to go my way, anything at all. But that breakthrough came in the form of finally getting my driver's license for the state of Tennessee after 5 months of having moved into this state. 5 months of being stuck in red tape and having no choice but to wait. Now I can officially say that I'm a resident of this new state that I have resided in for a while. I've talked earlier about how car ownership and the ability to drive is at the core of the American experience. I made a video and I also wrote a blog post a while ago. I'll put links to those in the description below. This saga really got me thinking about the long and the short of settling into a new place, a new chapter of life. I mean, it took me 2 days to set up this whole space around me, but it took 5 months to get my driver's license, which is the key proof of residence, the key to mobility in this car-first ecosystem where pedestrians are an afterthought. I mean, seriously, there are no sidewalks outside. It seems like 37% of the city that I live in has any footpaths or sidewalks, which is insane for me at least. But I digress. In the interim of getting my driver's license and that getting stuck in red tape, my mind got filled up with thoughts about all the plans, all the wishes, all the fantasies that have gone unfulfilled in my life so far. You see, when I moved to the US in my early 20s, about 6 years ago, I used to hear these usual offhand comments that implied that I was on borrowed time. Like, have your fun now because there will come a time where you won't get to do that anymore. There are these unwritten deadlines written by ancestors, written by society decades or centuries ago. It's like peer pressure, except peer pressure from people who have been dead for thousands of years. These forces pushing me in some direction because that's what's best for me. Like I am a log floating in a stream. And that's what's interesting about it, because living in the USA as a financially independent 20-something, I have had the most agency I have ever had in my life. And yet I'm powerless in many aspects. I mean, think about it. I'm living in the US on a work visa, and when it comes to any permanence in my residence status, I have a long way to go, and there's so many factors that are just beyond my control. The lyrics to Riders on the Storm, one of my favorite songs by one of my favorite bands, comes to mind. The lyrics say, "Into this house we're born, into this world we're thrown." The concept of being thrown into the world, born into conditions beyond our control, and these conditions affect how we live and how we experience the rest of our lives. I couldn't control where I was born, I couldn't control how I was raised. When I moved to the US, it was an opportunity to start afresh, to make mistakes and learn from them on my own accord without the judgmental eyes stalking my every move. Moving halfway across the world brought its own challenges with it. Having to deal with red tape was one of them. But it's the trade-off that I took. It's the bet I took upon myself. Right? I bet on myself, and I think I'm doing pretty well so far. And yet. And as I lay trapped in this red tape with things beyond my control, I began to see the other ways in which I hadn't really escaped the circumstances in which I was born and raised. began seeing those deadlines, those words echoed back saying, you're at the end of your rope, you're at the end of your time, you can't have any fun anymore. These existential dead ends that society has ordained to be the ideal conditions, the happily ever afters that you're not supposed to question. And you know what I mean. A wife, having kids, living in a house with a white picket fence and a backyard, having cordial relations with neighbors and some kind of social group that you're only a part of to satiate your social needs and a sense of community and belongingness. A group that runs purely on quid pro quo but tries to convince you that it's formed on some kind of a deeper connection. This to me is the existential nightmare, the nightmare of suburbia, of having settled into a groove of things but still having a whole bunch of things just hanging on your head, some uncertainties, where at a snap of a finger everything you have can just be taken away from you anyway. But you have to fool yourself into thinking that you're in a sense of security, but you're not. And is that all there is to life? I mean, wife, kids, social groups, and so on. Well, that really is all there is. There comes a time when you come to terms with the inherent absurdity of the universe and the world's silence on the matter. I'm talking about the concepts laid out by Albert Camus, where it's at this point where you either take refuge in the belief systems of your choice or you accept a nihilistic approach where nothing means anything. Or there's another option. You decide to rebel against all of it, against both the absurdity of the world, the universe that you reside in, and the world's silence on the matter, the apathy on the matter. To decide the way you want to live and to give in to neither ends of this problem just because you can. And therein lies the gist of it. That's the sense of agency that I want to exercise through the videos that I make, through the blogs that I write, through the content that I create. To exercise the right to talk about the things that I want to talk about, instead of simply talking about things that people want to hear, the socially desirable things, what the YouTube algorithm wants to push, or anything that would make this video go viral, whatever that may be. And in the end, let's look at the bright side. Things got resolved in the end when it comes to my driver's license. It's approved, and I want to revel in this sense of closure, of finally feeling like one chapter's closed and a new chapter has begun. And maybe I'm still hurtling towards some eventuality. Maybe it's all unknowable and absurd. But I feel like I've bought myself some time, regained a sense of agency, a sense of control in my surroundings. I had these thoughts circling in my head for a while now, and I needed to talk about them before I went about with the regularly scheduled programming. Life's just weird in general these days, and my run-ins with bureaucracy and the subsequent intrusive thoughts that I talked about only serve as a microcosm of life itself. The fact that this small thing was resolved, but there are so many questions that still remain, and even in the interim when this small thing wasn't resolved, there were so many intrusive thoughts in my head. That's in and of itself what life is all about how you decide to live it given the things that you can't change, about the journey and not the destination. Thanks for watching, everybody. Like this video if you liked it, share it with someone if you think they'd like it. And remember, the difference between marketing and propaganda is... I'll see you next time.